will also say that I won the bet while I was on vacation. I know we made the bet prior,
Oh
but
my
I never,
gosh.
but I never knew what the bet was. So if you came back and said, "Oh yeah, we decided not to do anything," I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I was just
You
hoping
know
that it was
what?
some beer from Houston, you know.
No, it's turning into beer from Houston because you know what's funny about that is I think fans kind of jumped in and I don't know, we had a ton of votes on it. We want to put it to the fans, but dear God, I mean, putting the option for a Dodgers jersey for either of us to put on was not a good call. Because there is no way in this green earth that you, being a Giants fan, would ever dream of having to put on a Dodgers uniform. And I actually, okay, so a couple of maybe 5 or 6 years ago, back when I was living in California, we went to a West Coast award ceremony. I was invited to, and
I think
Clayton
I know where
Kershaw.
this is going, by the way.
Oh man, Clayton Kershaw was the guest of honor, and so they gave all of the celebrities there a signed Clayton Kershaw jersey. Now, so I would have had the option to put it on because my Astros lost to your Giants in grand fashion because that was a phenomenal series. Actually, I don't want to take anything away from that because the Giants are actually really good. And now there's LA Times has an article today saying that they don't think the Dodgers are going to catch up to the Giants. We'll have to wait and see, but that was pretty cool to read. Yeah. But having that Dodgers jersey in the house, it is buried in a box.
It's
buried.
It looks like it's framed. It's framed back there, right next to the Expos jersey. You hung it up.
Dear God, hey man, that's not funny, man. You're gonna force this podcast into video because you keep saying stuff like that.
There you go.
It's buried back there, and I had as soon as the Astros lost and I saw the poll, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to pull this thing out. And instead, I have taken the executive decision to continue to have the Clayton Kershaw jersey buried, awesome. And I'm not going to break it out. So I owe you at least a 6-pack of St. Arnold Brew. It will be coming your way as soon as I possibly can. Or maybe I just buy you a plane ticket and get you to Houston, and we drink those 6 beers right here in Houston. That might be an option.
There we go. I'm all for it. I just I'd be remiss because we did engage the fans on that poll, and I agree with you. I think leaving bets into the hands of in the hands of the listeners. I think they're not quite. Let's see. How do I put this politically correct? I mean, they're going to be a little more.
I gave them the option. That was my fault.
Right.
I had control of the actual answers, and I gave them the option. That was my bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's blame you. But let's get back to what the bet actually was. And the reason I brought it up was not because I wanted my winnings, was because it happened while I wasn't even working. But the Giants and the Astros was a really good series, and I think when you see two good teams get together, you see good baseball. And I think the first game I did get to watch, and it was 7-0 early on. I think it ended up like 9-5 or 9-6. I mean, there's just no quit in the Giants. They're a really good hitting team. They have a good pitching staff. There's the guy that throws from his shoe reminds me of the other guy from the A's many years ago. But those guys are just, I think, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. But we also saw that the Astros, and this was, kind of right around the trade deadline, but the Astros without a bullpen were able to be competitive as well. And so hopefully the new additions and the things that both teams did, including adding like Chris Bryant or the Astros adding the bullpen guys that they did, that these teams are going to be reckoned with here down come pennant time.
No, I agree. I think the bullpen definitely will change some things because there were moments in that series where the bullpen kind of faltered a little bit, but it shouldn't take away from what the San Francisco Giants were able to do. Now, sitting from afar and not watching a lot of their games, I was kind of curious how they were doing it. They're playing a lot of tight games. I think they're playing 500 against the Dodgers and then beating up on everybody else. So that's kind of an interesting scenario, and I think it's a good scenario because if you are playing 500 against the quote-unquote best team in that division, you are playing very good baseball, and they're competitive. But the way that the Giants went out, their bullpen was really good. But the way they went out and hit the ball, because there's not really, other than Chris Bryant, Buster Posey, and Brandon Crawford, there weren't big names in that lineup, and Brandon Belt hasn't come back yet. Or wasn't back in that series, I don't believe.
Yeah, he wasn't.
And they hit the ball freaking hard. Dude, it was thunderous what some of these guys were doing. You're watching some of these pitches, and you're like, dude, these aren't duck snorts or Texas leaguers, or they are smashes. And they got a couple of pitches up out of the plate that they drove out of the ballpark. So I was thoroughly impressed with the way they hit the ball, and just reinforces the fact that you have to go out and pitch to this lineup for the Giants, even though they don't have those marquee names. And once you pitch around a Brandon Crawford, once you pitch around a Buster Posey, guess what? Darren Ruff tore it up. Gosh, I can't even remember the second baseman's name, but he had a great series, and that's probably who these guys are. I don't know who this guy is, but he's 2 for 2 with 2 RBIs, and here I am losing this game.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And those no-name guys are what I think sneak up on people when they don't have the when they don't have the name recognition, and all of a sudden, here's a scouting report here and there. But I think they're definitely going to be a team to be contended with. And I wanted to touch on, since our bet, and that's why I brought up, is the betting apps and stuff, live in-game betting. And one of the reasons that Blue Wire Networks is building a podcast studio in the Win is because of the WinBet app that they have, the MGM. I think they're competing with MGM, and I just saw another betting app come out. They're starting to legalize gambling, and I think that's going to be an interesting sideline or highlight to all this stuff as we head into fantasy football and football season. So I know that's kind of just throwing that at you for an opinion, but the playoffs should be a lot more interesting. And I think sports, especially with COVID and people staying at home, I think the betting industry is going to benefit from that, and it might make all these sports events more interesting. So I'll just take a six-pack of beer, by the way.
Yeah, that's our betting. Yeah, we aren't going to get financial on it and try and crush each other's wallets as we try and monetize our podcast and have some fun with it and actually pay our producer someday. But for the time being, beer is plenty enough of a payment for me and you, and I'm grateful for your conciliatory attitude towards the situation and being accepting of the fine craft brew of St. Arnold.